Well, that's a perfect timing, Narendra, for to bring you in. We've been talking about the sanctions, and Neil just shared his view around what India could do. And I think the key point made is that India will still do what is commercially good for the country. So, Narendra, what's your first impression? What's your first take? How will India deal with this challenge? Because India asked for sanctions, India got some sanctions. Your take?
Well, we have seen the reports. In Delhi, we are waiting for further, details in terms of when you say sanctions against Rosneft, which, as you know, also owns a big refinery in India, or sanctions against Lukoil, which is present not only present in 40 different countries and is a private player. So we are still waiting for further details, but as far as India's overall thinking policy on this issue is concerned, it's very clear that India is going to take all decisions based on its own commercial, economic interest and energy security. And we are a large country. We have our own relationship with Russia, and Russian President Mr. Putin is scheduled to visit India within the next few weeks in December, and Indian government and Indian establishment is preparing for the visit, and President Trump is traveling to Kuala Lumpur, and we still don't know whether our Prime Minister would be present. But at the same time, we've seen some progress in between India and the United States on the trade talks. Because all this Russian thing is nothing to do with Ukraine as far as India is. It's all about the trade. They are using Ukraine purchases from Russia in order to put pressure and extract the best deal. That's what America is trying. We all know that. So there is some good and positive progress on that, and we will wait. Then if, for instance, America agrees to give, let's say, to bring down the tariff from 50% to 15 or 18%, I think that's going to be a good progress in that direction. Let's
Good
not
progress.
forget. Russia is important, but the US is equally very, very important for India. So India wants to maintain a deepen relation with the US, but at the same time, to telling India that don't do this and don't do that, that's not the kind of culture India subscribes to.
Uh, I understand that Trump initially tried to put pressure on India to get Putin to sign a deal, and now it is probably putting a pressure on Russian system to get India to sign a deal. And I don't know what other big announcements which we can see before we land a deal, because I do remember that India was the first one which everybody was hoping for a deal. And will India will be the last big deal of the 2025, or you don't think that way?
I think there will be some kind of breakthrough simply because India is very keen to deepen relationship. We need American capital, we need American technology, and we also need America's kind of, overall, when you look at their idea of the Indo-Pacific, which includes Quad, some kind of security umbrella for this region that, goes from India right up to the United States and the entire Pacific. Is very, very important for us because the real threat to India is, as you know, China. And the rise of China, we thought it would be a benign China, but we know by now that it's not benign China. It's probably going to be hostile China. So in that case, we need the United States much more than many people are actually able to realize at this stage. So that's very important. But at the same time, India is very sensitive to its strategic autonomy. We want to see a strong Russia. A strong Russia is basically good for us because a weak Russia means Russia and China emerging as a kind of one big force. So our effort, part of the strategy is to wean Russia away from China to the extent we can help it, facilitate it. That's our strategy, and that's what has been conveyed to the US and Western Europe. But the biggest challenge that we see today is Western Europe. Western Europe, out of the whole picture of President Trump's effort to find some kind of breakthrough with Russia, Western Europe is coming in the way. They have their own idea. They have their own kind of, if I may use the term, hatred for President Putin in particular and Russia in general. And they have their own view of Russia, which many of us sitting outside Europe find difficult to understand. They are both Europeans, Russia and why can't they sit across the table and find a European solution to Ukraine? So we are at loss to
That's an
understand.
interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what it is. So we think that while keeping an eye on Russia and keeping an eye on Washington D.C., actually is important for us to keep an eye on Brussels, what they do. and Britain, London, what they do. So far, it looks like so far the winner is Western Europe. Their worldview and their Russian view has prevailed, on President Trump. President Trump is failing, and Western Europe view of Russia is succeeding. Is
I
it
have
good
to
for the
bring
world?
Neil
I have my
on
doubts. I
that.
mean, that's what it is.
Well, Narendra, I was with you in Fujairah, and we had our dear friend from China as well on the stage, and that was really a conversation. If you were in his shoes today, right, I want you to answer that question from his perspective. After seeing the latest sanctions on US and Russia, what would he be saying? What would be his take? Is that something you can attempt?
Well, Mahesh, the point is, when it comes to China, I never go by what they say. I always go by what they do. So what
Okay.
they say officially has no significance. The fact is, out of all this, the stand taken by America, stand taken by Russia, stand taken by Ukraine, and particularly Western Europe, the winner is China. China is smiling all the way because China is the winner. As an Indian, I am for freedom and democracy all over the world, including Ukraine. But my only point is that the issue is Ukraine, which is in Europe, and Russia and Western Europe, they are in Europe. Why can't they just sit across the table, find a solution? Why do they need America? Why do they need India or China? So before commenting on India, China, or America, any country, it's a European problem. Find a solution. You've been around for decades and centuries. That's point number one. Number two is that if Europe tomorrow it doesn't succeed in emerging as the second largest economy in the world, which is it has potential, and to go for 5% GDP spending on defense, for that they need to strengthen their economy, and they cannot strengthen their economy, make their economy world class, and bring a manufacturing back without affordable, or let me use the term, cheap energy. And cheap energy can come only from Russia. So sit across the table, find a solution which is democratic, which is a win-win for all, and strengthen Europe. Strong Europe is good for the world. Otherwise, China is going to give you tougher time than Russia is giving. So please
Okay.
look at it very carefully. And the last line I want to say is this: that look, the whole world now, the kind of scenario we have got here, Europe needs to come out of is, they're very stubborn. They need to look beyond Europe, look at the whole world, work backward, find a solution which is a win-win for the whole world.
That Narendra, any surprise which the oil markets or traders need to watch?
And not really, because my sense is that President Trump may do whatever he's trying to do, maybe very unpredictable and called by any name. But the fact remains that he would not like to see oil prices going beyond $62 per barrel on sustained basis. I don't think he can afford it. His constituents, his voters, they like cheap oil. And President Trump himself is trying his level best, to the best of my information, to bring actually oil below $60 per barrel. And if you go by demand and supply fundamentals, oil should not be even today more than $61 per barrel. Brent, I'm referring to. So I think, given that that's how he thinks, and he wants manufacturing back, and he wants American economy to do well. So oil at $60 per barrel, that is goal. Any geopolitics that leads to oil going beyond $65, 66 on sustained basis, I think then he's going to rework his diplomacy. So
Okay.
that's a good point. The only worst point is that we have to see what happens to China and Chinese economy in particular. That's a very critical factor. And also, we have to see how he handles. I think so far he has handled things as far as geopolitics reasonably well. Like in India, we are quite hopeful there will be a breakthrough. And if there is a breakthrough, that would also be a kind of template which would be available to other countries, other partners of America, particularly that how to deal with him and how to build a way forward.
We have seen certainly the oil prices are down year on year about 12 to 13%. They are down by 6% month to month. And today they have increased by 4%. So where we are now, close to 65, are we going towards 70 or are we going back fast towards another 60? Yes and no takes. And I think very quick takes.
I would say the band, let's say band of $62 per barrel to $68 per barrel. And because all said and done at the same time, President Trump loves two things: cheap oil and Nobel Peace Prize.